it's a tough call for Burnham as to how far he's going to invest in that relationship. Obviously, the relationship with the US is important, but he may make the calculation that maybe we're past peak Trump and it's better for him to hold a little bit of distance and reserve in that relationship over the next few months.
Now then, let's just cast our attention to Turkey, Ankara, the big NATO summit now taking place there. There's a lot of pressure. It's the big issue on the agenda. Well, one of a couple of huge issues is, of course, defence spending. President Trump, he spoke earlier after meeting Turkey's President Erdogan, and he was asked what he hoped to achieve.
I was very disappointed with NATO, and frankly, if it weren't held in Turkey, where my friend happens to be a very strong leader, it's possible that I wouldn't have attended. I felt I had to attend because of the fact that, I know he's gone all out. It was a big thing to have NATO come to Turkey, but we weren't treated well because we did something in Iran. We don't need anybody's help. I didn't even want their help. We've invested trillions of dollars in NATO. Why? To protect European countries and others, Canada, etc., but to protect people, countries from, generally speaking, it used to be the Soviet Union, now it's Russia.
Now, President Trump singled out the UK as the focus of his disappointment.
You would think that they'd be very willing to do something to help us, and they really weren't. In the case of the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister, I guess he's no longer there, maybe because of this. It was a very unpopular thing he did. He said, no, we'll help after the war is over. I said, I don't need that kind of help. We didn't need any help at all. And in a way, I was testing people. I was testing to see whether or not they'd be there, because I've long said that we helped them, but I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. And Italy turned us down, and Germany turned us down, and France turned us down. And it's okay. But, why are we spending hundreds of billions of dollars and they're not there for us?
President Trump. Well, Keir Starmer is there. He is going to be there. He's going to be sitting next to Donald Trump at certain points during this NATO summit. Let's talk to Sir Simon Fraser, the former head of the Foreign Office and the chair of Chatham House. Hello to you, Simon.
Hello, good afternoon.
It's lovely to have you here. So Donald Trump, he's landed, hasn't he, full of rebukes for NATO partners, but the fear of America scaling down or withdrawing support from NATO in Europe, that's a very real fear, Simon.
Yeah, well, first of all, just to say, I thought in the clip you just played, Donald Trump was reaching new levels of incoherence, even for himself on this. He was contradicting himself about whether he wanted help, whether he expected help, whether he needed it. So let's just aim off a bit for that. So having said that, yes, of course, this whole issue about European defence spending and the rebalancing of commitments in NATO is important. It's not new. It's something to which the Europeans have been seeking to respond, and in many cases are taking measures, as indeed the Secretary General of NATO, Mr. Rutte, has been trying to make clear in recent times. So it's an ongoing debate, and the question here is whether Donald Trump decides to make a big issue of it and sort of throw things out of the pram, as he did at Davos, or whether they manage the process to have a relatively smooth summit, which is what the Europeans will be looking for, focusing, they would hope, more on actual practical support for Ukraine.
And do you think the plan, the defence plan and spending plan that was bequeathed to Andy Burnham by Keir Starmer, does that make Starmer's job there easier or harder?
Well, the fact is that Keir Starmer is going there, in any case, having said that he's stepping down, so he doesn't have a lot of clout really around the table. It's his final international appearance, and I think we have to accept that. He'll be pleased that he got his defence investment plan through, although with all the difficulties around it, including the fact that it's not really fully funded, he's vulnerable, of course, to criticism that he couldn't really deliver. And no doubt Donald Trump will continue to make comments around that. And the question now is whether Andy Burnham will pick that plan up and run with it, and indeed at the next spending round of the UK, add further funding to defence. So it's a glass half full and half empty for Starmer, better than nothing.
And I guess the problem for NATO, for Keir Starmer, and eventually for Andy Burnham, is that the political and the personal are just so intertwined with President Trump. But they are and will be dealing as much with President Trump's moods as his political thinking.
Well, that is the issue for all the other NATO members as they go to this conference, that it's It's largely about the president's mood and a certain amount of whimsicality in it. I mean, there is a very important issue that you're touching on there, which is that if and when Andy Burnham becomes Prime Minister, he is going to have to decide how he manages his relationship with Donald Trump. Now, as we know, Keir Starmer started by trying to to hold Donald Trump tight and be close to him, but they fell out largely over Iran as well as Greenland and other things, and the relationship cooled. And it's a tough call for Burnham as to how far he's going to invest in that relationship. Obviously, the relationship with the US is important, but he may make the calculation that maybe we're past peak Trump, and it's better for him to hold a little bit of distance and reserve in that relationship over the next few months.
I wonder what distance and reserve looks like. I mean, the next Prime Minister won't lack for volume of advice. I wonder, in a nutshell, what would yours be then? How would you describe the way that you would suggest he acts?
So my advice would be that the relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom, although it is evolving and changing, remains incredibly important. And we should work to hold on to it and preserve what is best about it. But we have to accept that it is changing and that we can't rely on the United States in the way that we used to. We therefore have to build our relations with others in Europe and elsewhere in the defence and security field. And that is the overall context within which he should have as constructive a relationship and as positive a relationship as he can with President Trump, but without becoming, if you like, suborned to any of the personal agendas of the president.
Yes. Now, Simon, this is too big a question to sort of squeeze into a minute, but that's the time that we...
But that's what we're going to do, right?
That's what we have. I mean, Ukraine is at a really, I don't know, delicate point, maybe a defining point in the conflict with Russia. What can NATO most usefully do for Ukraine and for Western security at this stage in the conflict? We've heard President Zelensky saying the really most important thing now is air defense. He wants missiles to take out Russian ballistic attacks. What can NATO do you think?
Well, the first thing is that NATO should be solid and altogether in expressing unwavering support for Ukraine, and that includes the President of the United States. And I think that message has come from the Secretary General of NATO. So we need to give that support. Secondly, the Europeans, of course, after the change of leadership in Hungary, are actually now passing a $70 billion package of further support for Ukraine. So Europe is stepping up to the mark, and that's important. And thirdly, we do need to look at what actually the requirements are, because the war is evolving very fast. We've got into what President Zelensky is now calling an air war. We see the preeminence of drones in the battle. And so we need to tailor the support to the actual issues that the Ukrainians need. And that may include more air defense, but certainly we've got to talk to them and focus our aid in the most practical ways.
All right. So Simon Fraser, former head of the Foreign Office, now chair of Chatham House. Always good to get your reflections. Thank you.